The bridge of the UES Prometheus hummed with quiet efficiency. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the massive viewport, watching stars drift past like diamonds on black velvet. Her weathered hands clasped behind her back, she looked every inch the veteran commander she was. 20 years of deep space missions had carved lines into her face, but her dark eyes remained sharp as a blade. "Captain," Lieutenant Torres called from the communications station, his voice cutting through the ambient noise. "We're picking up something unusual." Chen turned, her boots clicking against the metal deck. The bridge crew, 12 of Earth's finest, looked up from their stations with practiced alertness. These weren't fresh academy graduates. They were hardened veterans who'd seen the galaxy's dangers firsthand. "What kind of unusual?" Chen asked, moving to Torres's station. The young lieutenant's fingers danced across holographic displays, his brow furrowed with concentration. "It's a distress signal, but the pattern, I've never seen anything like it." The signal pulsed through the bridge speakers, a haunting series of tones that seemed to carry desperation itself. Long, warbling notes followed by sharp staccato bursts. It sounded almost like crying. "Run it through the universal translator," Chen ordered. "Already did, Captain. It's not in our database. Whatever species this is, we've never encountered them before." Commander Marcus Webb, Chen's second-in-command, approached from the tactical station. His massive frame cast a shadow over the communications console. A former Marine with scars crossing his shaved head, Webb had seen action on 6 different worlds. "Could be a trap," he rumbled in his deep voice. "Pirates use fake distress calls to lure in rescue ships." Chen nodded. Webb's caution had saved their lives more than once. "Where's it coming from?" Torres highlighted a sector on the main display. "Bearing 27 Mark IV. Distance approximately 8 light hours." "That's deep in uncharted space," noted Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenobiologist. Her slight frame and gentle voice often made people underestimate her, but she'd documented more alien species than anyone in the fleet. "No known settlements in that region." The distress signal continued its eerie pattern. Chen felt something stir in her chest, a recognition that transcended species barriers. She'd heard enough cries for help to know genuine desperation when she heard it. "Captain," Torres said suddenly, his face pale, "I'm detecting multiple signals now, dozens of them, all using the same pattern." The bridge fell silent except for the haunting chorus of alien voices calling out across the void. Chen's jaw tightened. Whatever was happening out there, it was big. "All stop," she commanded. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson as klaxons echoed through the ship. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their movements sharp and purposeful. These were humans who'd learned to survive in a galaxy that wanted them dead. "Captain," called Ensign Park from the sensor station, "long-range scans are showing debris fields, lots of them, and energy signatures consistent with weapons fire." Chen's blood ran cold. A massacre. That's what they were looking at. "How many ships?" she asked. Park's hands flew over his console. "Hard to tell with all the interference, but hundreds, Captain. Maybe thousands." Webb stepped closer to Chen, lowering his voice. "Sarah, this could be a fleet engagement. Military action. We might be looking at the aftermath of a major battle." Chen stared at the tactical display showing the debris fields scattered across space like a graveyard. The distress signals continued, their plaintive chorus, alien voices crying out for salvation that might never come. "Or," she said quietly, "we might be looking at genocide." The word hung in the air like a curse. Every human on the bridge knew their species' history. They understood what systematic extermination looked like, and they all knew what humans did when they encountered it. "Orders, Captain?" Webb asked. Chen looked at her crew, her family. They'd followed her through hell before. Now she was asking them to fly into what might be another war zone. But those signals, those desperate voices— "Set course for the distress signals," she commanded. "Maximum warp." "Captain," Dr. Vasquez said hesitantly, "shouldn't we contact Fleet Command first? Request backup?" Chen's smile was cold as space itself. Doctor, by the time backup arrives, those voices might be silent forever. Besides, she gestured to the tactical display showing the Prometheus's armament. We are the backup. The ship shuddered as the warp drive engaged, hurling them toward whatever nightmare waited in the darkness. Chen remained on the bridge, watching the stars blur past, listening to those alien voices crying out for help. She didn't know yet that this moment would change everything. That what they found in that debris field would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. That the Terran response fleet's actions in the next few hours would become legend. All she knew was that somewhere in the dark, people were dying, and humans don't walk away from that. Chapter 2, First Contact Protocol. 3 hours later, the Prometheus dropped out of warp at the edge of the debris field. What they found defied comprehension. Twisted metal drifted in clouds of frozen atmosphere. Ship fragments the size of buildings tumbled slowly through space, their hulls torn open like flowers of destruction. Emergency beacons blinked weakly, among the wreckage, their lights fading one by one as power reserves failed. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez, staring at the main display. Captain Chen stood rigid, her fists clenched at her sides. In 2 decades of service, she'd seen war zones and pirate raids, but nothing like this. The scale of destruction was overwhelming. "Casualty estimates?" she asked, her voice steady despite the horror before them. Ensign Park worked frantically, at his station. "Based on ship fragments and debris patterns, I'm reading the remains of at least 300 vessels, Captain. Possibly more. Any survivors?" The distress signals are still broadcasting, picking up 17 distinct sources. Wait. Park's face went white. "Make that 15. 2 just went dark." Chen felt her jaw clench. People were dying while they watched. "Can we isolate individual survivor locations?" Commander Webb asked. "Working on it," Torres replied. "The interference from all this debris is making it difficult, but yes, I've got coordinates for the remaining signals." Chen moved to the center of the bridge. "Options, people. How do we extract survivors from this mess?" "Shuttle operations," Webb suggested immediately. "Small craft can navigate the debris field better than the Prometheus." "Too slow," Chen shook her head. "We'll lose more survivors while we're playing it safe." She turned to her communications officer. "Torres, can you establish contact with any of the survivors?" "Trying now, Captain." Torres's fingers flew over his console. "The universal translator is still having trouble with their language, but I might be able to." The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice came through, weak, desperate, and utterly alien. The words were incomprehensible, but the emotion was universal. Fear, pain, hope dying slowly in the dark. "That's coming from bearing 097 Mark 6, Torres reported. "Distance, 2,000 kilometers. "Visual," Chen ordered. The main screen shifted to show a section of the debris field. Among the twisted wreckage, a small pod tumbled end over end. Its hull was cracked, atmosphere leaking in thin streams that crystallized instantly in the vacuum. "Life signs?" Chen asked. Dr. Vasquez consulted her medical scanners. "Multiple contacts, at least 6 individuals. But Captain, their life support is failing. They have maybe 30 minutes. Chen calculated rapidly. Even if they launched a shuttle immediately, the round trip would take 45 minutes through the debris field. It was impossible. Unless, "Webb, how close can we bring the Prometheus to that pod?" Her first officer studied the tactical display. "The debris field is too dense, Captain. We'd risk hull breaches trying to navigate through there." "That wasn't the question I asked." Chen's voice carried the edge of command. "How close?" Webb's scarred face was grim. 500 meters, maybe 400 if we're willing to risk everything." "Risk assessment for tractor beam extraction from that range? In this debris field? With our shields at maximum to deflect impacts?" Webb shook his head. "It's insane, Sarah. One wrong calculation and we could lose the Prometheus." Chen looked at the pod on the screen. As she watched, its emergency beacon flickered and went dark. "Captain," Torres called out urgently. Another signal just went silent. We're down to 13 survivors. 13. The number hit Chen like a physical blow. 13 beings out of what had been thousands. The only witnesses to whatever had happened here. The only voices that could tell the galaxy about this atrocity. "All stop," she commanded. "Prepare for precision maneuvering. I want our best helmsman at the con." Lieutenant Rodriguez, a pilot who'd threaded asteroids and navigated solar storms, moved to the helm. His hands were steady as he took control. "Captain," Webb said quietly, "if we lose the ship trying to save them, then we'll have died doing what humans do." Chen cut him off. "We don't abandon people in need, ever." She opened a comm channel to the entire ship. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt a high-risk rescue operation. The survivors we're trying to reach have less than 30 minutes of life support remaining. We will save them." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They'd served under Chen long enough to recognize that tone. When the captain used that voice, the impossible became inevitable. "Rodriguez, take us in." "Nice and easy." The Prometheus began its descent into the debris field. Chunks of alien metal scraped against their shields, sending showers of sparks across the viewport. The ship shuddered as larger pieces impacted their deflectors. "Shields at 90%, reported the tactical officer. "Distance to target? 1,000 meters, Rodriguez called out, sweat beading on his forehead. "Debris is getting thicker. I'm reading multiple hull fragments directly ahead." "Thread the needle, Lieutenant." Rodriguez's hands danced over the controls with surgical precision. The massive starship twisted and rolled, following gaps in the wreckage that seemed impossibly narrow. Warning lights flashed as the ship's automated system screamed protests about proximity alerts and collision warnings. 500 meters, Rodriguez announced. Chen could see the survivor pod now through the viewport, a small, egg-shaped craft drifting helplessly among the debris. Its hull was scored and cracked, and she could see figures moving weakly inside. "Tractor beam range," Torres confirmed. "Lock on," Chen ordered. "Locked. But Captain, the beam is going to destabilize some of the larger debris pieces. If they shift, do it." The tractor beam lanced out, an invisible hand reaching through space to grasp the alien pod. Immediately, the surrounding debris began to shift as the beam's gravitational effects spread through the field. "Incoming!" Webb shouted. A massive piece of what had once been a ship's engine section came tumbling toward them, its twisted metal bulk glowing with residual heat. Rodriguez threw the Prometheus into a desperate, evasive maneuver, the ship's frame groaning under the stress. The debris missed them by less than 50 meters. "Pod secured," Torres reported. "Bringing them aboard now." Chen watched the survivor pod disappear into the Prometheus's shuttle bay. "Medical team to Shuttle Bay 1, full xenobiological protocols." "Captain," Ensign Park called out urgently. "I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching. Multiple contacts bearing 007, Mark III. Chen spun toward the tactical display. A formation of ships was emerging from behind a large debris field. Sleek, predatory vessels that moved with deadly grace. "Configuration unknown," Park continued. "But they're big, Captain. Really big." Chen's blood went cold as she realized what they were looking at. The attackers. They'd returned to finish what they started. "How long until they reach us?" "At their current speed. 12 minutes. Chen looked at the debris field around them, the graveyard of an entire civilization. Then she looked at her crew, the best humans the fleet had to offer. "Red alert," she commanded. "All hands to battle stations. We're about to find out who did this." As the alien warships closed in, one thing became crystal clear. The Prometheus wasn't just rescuing survivors anymore. They were about to become witnesses to genocide. Chapter 3. Rules of Engagement. The alien survivors lay on medical beds in Nendere, the Prometheus's sickbay, their forms barely recognizable as sentient beings. Dr. Vasquez worked frantically over the 6 rescued beings, her instruments beeping softly as she tried to stabilize their vital signs. Captain Chen stood in the doorway, studying the survivors. They were tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered with an opalescent quality. Even injured and unconscious, there was something elegant about them, something that spoke of a peaceful, artistic civilization. "How are they, Doctor?" Chen asked. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her scanner readings. "Alive, but barely. Severe decompression injuries, radiation exposure, and what appears to be energy weapon burns." She paused, her face grave. "Captain, these aren't military. Personnel. Look at their hands." Chen moved closer. The survivors' hands were long and delicate, with no calluses or scars. These were the hands of artists, scholars, perhaps musicians. "Civilians," Chen said quietly. "More than that. I'm reading traces of artistic compounds in their system, materials used in painting, sculpture, musical instruments. This was a cultural vessel, Captain. Maybe a colony ship full of artists and their families." The weight of that revelation settled on Chen's shoulders like a lead blanket. Someone had systematically destroyed civilian vessels. They'd murdered artists, families, children. "Captain, to the bridge," Torres's voice crackled over the comm. "Those alien ships are closing fast. We need you up here." Chen took one last look at the survivors. One of them, a female, she thought, stirred slightly. For a moment, large eyes opened and looked directly at Chen. There was no fear in those eyes, only gratitude and something else. Hope. "Take care of them, Doctor," Chen said softly. "They're the only witnesses we have." Chen arrived on the bridge to find organized chaos. The crew worked with practiced efficiency, but she could see the tension in their movements. On the main screen, 6 massive alien warships approached through the debris field, their hulls dark and angular. "Report," Chen commanded. Commander Webb stepped forward. 6 vessels, each roughly twice our size. Advanced technology. I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. They're not responding to hails. Have they targeted us? Not yet. But Captain, Webb's scarred face was grim. I think they're here to clean up, to make sure there are no witnesses. Chen studied the approaching ships. Their design was purely functional. No decoration, no aesthetic considerations. These were built for one, purpose killing. Time to intercept, 8 minutes. Chen opened a channel to the entire ship. "All hands, this is the captain. We have recovered 6 survivors from what appears to be a systematic attack on civilian vessels. The attackers are approaching our position. As of this moment, the Prometheus is the only thing standing between these survivors and total extinction." She paused, looking at her crew. Every face on the bridge was set with determination. "I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered 6-1 by ships with superior firepower. By all tactical considerations, we should withdraw immediately and call for backup." Webb nodded grimly. It was the sensible thing to do. "But," Chen continued, "withdrawal means abandoning the survivors to certain death. It means letting the perpetrators of this massacre escape to do this again. And it means humanity turns its back on everything we claim to stand for." The bridge was silent except for the hum of ship systems. "I'm not ordering anyone to stay. This is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to can take the escape pods now. No shame, no judgment." Chen waited. Not a single person moved. "Very well," she said, a fierce pride filling her voice. "Let's show these bastards what happens when you commit genocide in front of humans." "Captain," Torres called from communications. "I'm getting partial translation from the survivor pod's data recorder. The universal translator is starting to piece together their language." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled and a voice came through, weak and distorted but recognizably the same species as their survivors. Came without warning. "Children on the art vessels. Please, we surrender. We are not warriors. We make only beauty." The voice cut to static, then resumed. "They don't stop. They kill the younglings first, and why do they hate our songs?" Chen felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. The survivors' species had been artists, musicians. They'd created beauty, and someone had tried to erase them from existence simply for being different. Distance to hostile vessels? 4 minutes and closing. Chen moved to the command chair. Battle stations. All weapons armed. Prepare for combat. The Prometheus transformed as battle protocols engaged. Blast shields closed over viewports. Weapon systems came online. The ship's lights dimmed as power was redirected to shields and armaments. "Captain," Webb said quietly, "what are our rules of engagement?" Chen looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy ships. Then she thought about the artists lying in sickbay, about the children who died in the debris field, about civilizations that created beauty being systematically destroyed. "Simple," she said. "They started this war when they decided to commit genocide. We're going to finish it." "Captain," Ensign Park called from sensors, "the lead enemy vessel is hailing us on screen." The main display flickered, then showed the bridge of the lead alien ship. The being that appeared was tall and angular, with dark metallic skin and eyes like black holes. When it spoke, its voice was flat and emotionless. "Unknown vessel. You will surrender the survivors and submit to termination. Resistance will only prolong your suffering." Chen stood slowly, every inch the commanding officer. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Prometheus. You are guilty of genocide against a peaceful species. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions." The alien's face didn't change expression. "You speak of conventions of war, but you are merely another inferior species to be eliminated. Your emotional attachment to the survivors is irrational. They were scheduled for termination." "Scheduled for termination?" Chen's voice was deadly quiet. "You're talking about murder, about the systematic killing of an entire species. We are talking about efficiency. The galaxy has no need for species that contribute nothing but useless art and music. They are a waste of resources." Chen felt her crew shift behind her. She could sense the anger building on the bridge. These aliens didn't just kill for territory or resources. They killed for the crime of being different. "I see," Chen said calmly. "You're what we call supremacists. You believe only your way of life has value. We believe in order, in utility, in strength." Chen's smile was cold as the void. "Then you're about to learn something about human strength." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Tactical analysis, Mr. Webb. 6 vessels, heavy armaments, advanced shielding. They're designed for planetary bombardment, maximum destruction with minimum resistance. Weaknesses," Webb studied his displays. "They're built for overwhelming force against helpless targets. I don't think they're used to enemies that fight back." "Then let's give them an education," Chen said. "Mr. Rodriguez, evasive maneuvers. Mr. Torres, target their lead ship's engine core. All weapons, fire at will." The Prometheus leaped forward like a hunting cat, its engine screaming as it dove toward the enemy formation. The alien ships, expecting easy prey, were caught off guard by the aggressive attack. Phaser beams lanced out from the human ship, striking the lead alien vessel's shields in brilliant flashes of energy. Quantum torpedoes followed, their explosions lighting up the debris field like deadly fireworks. "Direct hit on their lead ship," Webb reported. "Shield strength down to 60%. "Return fire," Chen commanded as the alien ships began to respond. The battle for the debris field, and for the very concept of a galaxy where art and beauty could exist, had begun. But as the Prometheus faced overwhelming odds, Captain Chen couldn't shake the feeling that this was bigger than 1 ship and 6 survivors. This was the moment humanity announced to the galaxy that genocide would not be tolerated, not while humans still drew breath. Chapter 4. The line holds the eye. Space around the debris field erupted into chaos as 6 alien warships converged on the lone human vessel. Energy beams scorched through vacuum, leaving trails of ionized gas in their wake. The Prometheus rolled and twisted through the asteroid-sized chunks of destroyed ships, using the debris as cover. "Shields down to 40%, Webb called, out as another barrage struck their starboard side. "Hull breaches on deck 7 and 9. Captain Chen gripped her command chair as the ship bucked under the assault. "Damage control teams to affected areas. Reroute power from non-essential systems to shields." The lead alien ship, its hull dark as space itself, unleashed a concentrated beam of energy that carved through a nearby piece of debris like it was tissue paper. The molten remains tumbled past the Prometheus's viewport, still glowing from the heat. That was a warning shot, Webb observed grimly. They could have hit us. They want us intact, Chen realized. They want to interrogate us, find out what we know about the survivors. Captain, Torres called from communications, I'm picking up more chatter from the survivors' data recorder. The translation matrix is getting better at their language. Put it through. Static filled the bridge, then cleared to reveal fragments of the final transmission from the destroyed fleet. To anyone who receives this, we are the Melodians of the Harmony Cluster. We came to this region to establish a colony of artists and musicians. We have no weapons, no military. We only wanted to create beauty. The voice broke with static, then continued. The hegemony found us. They say our existence is an aberration, that species who create art instead of expanding territory are weak, unworthy. Chen felt her jaw tighten. The hegemony. Now they had a name for the genocidal killers. They are systematically destroying every Melodian vessel, hunting us down. Please, if anyone finds this recording, remember that we existed. Remember our songs. The transmission cut to static, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Jesus, whispered Dr. Vasquez over the comm from sickbay. Captain, the survivors are responding to the recording. They're crying. Chen looked at the tactical display. The hegemony. Ships were closing in, their formation perfect and deadly. Professional killers who'd already murdered thousands. Mr. Webb, how many ships like this would it take to wipe out an entire species? Based on their firepower, a dozen fleets this size could sterilize every Melodian world in their space. We might be looking at the survivors of an entire civilization. Weight of that realization settled on Chen's shoulders. 6 beings in their sickbay might be all that remained of a species that had given the galaxy art and music. Captain, Ensign Park called urgently, the hegemony ships are charging their main weapons. Energy readings are off the charts. On the main screen, the 6 alien vessels arranged themselves in attack formation. Their hulls began to glow with accumulated energy, enough to vaporize the Prometheus and everything aboard. Chen stood slowly, her mind racing through tactical options. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and trapped in a debris field with nowhere to run. But humans had faced impossible odds before. Mr. Torres, she said calmly, send a message to Fleet Command. Full tactical analysis of the hegemony ship's survivor, testimonies and our current situation. Already prepared, Captain. Transmitting now on all frequencies. Chen nodded. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would know about the Melodians, about the hegemony's crimes, about humanity's response. All hands, she announced shipwide. This is the captain. The enemy is preparing to attack with overwhelming force. In a few minutes we may all be dead, but before we die I want you to remember why we're here. She looked at the faces of her crew, professionals who'd volunteered to serve in the most dangerous region of space. We're here because 6 innocent beings needed help and humans don't walk away from that. We're here because someone decided that creating art and music was a crime worthy of extinction. We're here because if we don't make a stand, the hegemony will continue their genocide across the galaxy. The alien ship's weapons reached full charge, casting an ominous glow across the debris field. In our ship's database, Chen continued, we carry the music of Earth. Mozart and Miles Davis, Beethoven and the Beatles, Bob Marley and Bach. We carry the art of Da Vinci and Picasso, the poetry of Shakespeare and Maya Angelou. We are the guardians of human creativity, and we stand with all beings who choose to create instead of destroy. The hegemony ships began to advance, their formation tightening like a noose. So here's what we're going to do, Chen said, her voice carrying the absolute certainty of command. We're going to hurt them. We're going to make them bleed. And when other ships arrive to find our wreckage, they'll see that the hegemony paid a price for their crimes. She sat back in her command chair. All weapons fire at will. Make every shot count. The Prometheus opened fire with everything it had. Phaser arrays carved into the nearest hegemony ship, while quantum torpedoes exploded against their shields. The human vessel darted between debris chunks, using every piece of cover available. The hegemony ships returned fire with devastating efficiency. Energy beams scorched through space, some missing the agile human ship by mere meters. Shields down to 20%, Webb reported. We can't take much more of this. Then we make sure they can't either, Chen replied. Target their lead ship's bridge. Full torpedo spread. 6 quantum torpedoes streaked toward the hegemony flagship, their blue trails cutting through the darkness. The alien ship's shields flared and failed under the concentrated assault. The torpedoes struck home, tearing into the dark hull. Direct. Hit, Torres shouted. Their lead ship is venting atmosphere. But even as they celebrated the small victory, the other 5 hegemony ships closed in for the kill. The Prometheus was trapped, surrounded, outgunned. Chen watched the tactical display as the alien ships prepared for their final assault. In sickbay, 6 Melodian survivors, possibly the last members of their species, waited to learn their fate. That's when the sensors detected something new. Captain, Park called out, his voice filled with disbelief. I'm reading multiple warp signatures, massive ones, ships dropping out of warp all along the debris field perimeter. The main screen shifted to show the tactical overview. Chen's breath caught in her throat. 12 human starships materialized from warp. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, and battle carriers. The cavalry had arrived. This is Admiral Martinez aboard the UES Retribution. A familiar voice crackled over the comm. Prometheus, we received your message. Hold your position. The cavalry is here. Chen smiled for the first time in hours. Admiral, we have survivors aboard. 6 beings who may be the last of their species. Understood, Captain. We'll make sure they stay that way. The hegemony ships, suddenly outnumbered 2 to 1, began to retreat. But Admiral Martinez wasn't about to let genocidal killers escape. All ships, he broadcasted on an open channel. These aliens have committed genocide against a peaceful species. Under the Terra Convention on Crimes Against Sentient Life, they are considered enemies of all civilization. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. The hegemony flagship responded with a weapons burst aimed at the nearest human ship. I guess that's their answer, Martinez said grimly. All ships, weapons free. Show them what happens when you commit genocide in human space. The Battle of the Melodian debris field lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 4 hegemony ships were destroyed and 2 had been captured. The human fleet suffered minor damage, to 3 vessels and no casualties, but the real victory wasn't tactical, it was moral. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy within days. The human response to genocide became legend. Other species began to understand that Earth's children were willing to die to protect the right of all beings to create beauty instead of destruction. The hegemony learned that humans don't negotiate. With those who commit genocide, they eliminate them. Epilogue. The Harmony Restored. 6 months after the Battle of the Melodian debris field, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the Grand Concert Hall of New Geneva, Earth's cultural capital. The vast amphitheater was filled to capacity with beings from dozens of species, all gathered for an unprecedented event. On stage, 3 Melodian survivors, recovered enough to perform, prepared to play their species' music for the first time since the genocide attempt. The other 3 survivors worked with human artists to document their civilization's art and poetry, ensuring their culture would survive, even if their species remained critically endangered. The lead Melodian, whose name translated roughly to Singer of Dawn Winds, approached the microphone. Her opalescent skin shimmered under the stage lights as she spoke in her musical language, her words translated for the diverse audience. We sing today not just for our lost people, she began, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to touch something deep in the souls of every listener, but for all beings throughout the galaxy who choose to create rather than destroy. Chen watched from the VIP section as the survivors began their performance. The music was unlike anything she'd ever heard. Complex harmonies that seemed to paint pictures in the air, melodies that spoke of distant worlds and lost loves. Beside her, Admiral Martinez leaned over. Intelligence reports that the hegemony is in full retreat. Seems word got out about what happened to their cleansing fleet. Other species are starting to stand up to them. Chen nodded, but her attention was fixed on the stage. As the Melodians played, she thought about the choice they'd all made in that debris field, to risk everything for 6 strangers, to stand against genocide even when it seemed hopeless. "Admiral," she said quietly, "what's the status of the hegemony trials? The 2 surviving ships' crews are being tried on Terra Prime. First time in galactic history that genocide has been prosecuted as a crime against all sentient life. The Melodian survivors' testimony has been powerful." On stage, the music reached a crescendo that seemed to make the very air vibrate with beauty. Several audience members were openly weeping, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming beauty of sounds they'd thought lost forever. "There's something else," Martinez continued. "The Galactic Council has passed the Terra Convention by unanimous vote. Any species that commits genocide now faces intervention by the combined fleets of 73 worlds." Chen smiled slightly. "And who's enforcing this convention? Officially? The combined fleets? Unofficially?" Martinez's weathered face cracked a grin. "Let's just say everyone knows that when humans find out about genocide, someone's going to have a very bad day." The Melodian music shifted to a different movement, something that sounded like a lament for the lost but gradually transformed into something hopeful. New harmonies joined the melody, representing the species that had stood with them against extinction. Dr. Vasquez appeared at Chen's shoulder. "Captain, I thought you'd like to know. We've had contact from 17 different species offering to provide homes for Melodian refugees, and 3 worlds have volunteered to serve as new Melodian colonies. Any word on survivors from other regions?" "That's the best news," Vasquez said, her eyes bright. "Long-range communications have located 47 Melodian colony ships that escaped the hegemony attacks. They were scattered across the galaxy, hiding in fear. But when they heard about the battle, about humanity's protection," she smiled. "They're coming home." Chen felt a warmth spread through her chest. The Melodians would survive. Their music would continue. Their art would flourish again. On stage, Singer of Dawn Winds began a new piece, one that incorporated musical elements from Earth's classical tradition. A fusion of 2 species' creativity, creating something entirely new and beautiful. "The cultural exchange programs are exceeding all expectations," Vasquez continued. "Human artists are learning Melodian techniques, and they're teaching us their methods. We're creating art that neither species could have imagined alone." The concert continued for another hour, each piece more beautiful than the last. When it finally ended, the audience rose in a thunderous ovation that lasted for 10 minutes. As the crowd began to disperse, Chen made her way backstage. She found Singer of Dawn Winds sitting quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "Captain Chen," the Melodian said in accented but clear English, "I wanted to thank you personally, for what you did, for what your species did." Chen sat beside her. "We did what anyone should do when they encounter genocide. We stopped it. But you risked everything. Your ship, your crew, your lives for 6 strangers." Chen thought about that for a moment. In human philosophy, there's a concept called the categorical imperative. It means you act according to principles you'd want to be universal laws. If we'd abandoned you, we'd be saying that genocide is acceptable when it's inconvenient to stop it. Singer of Dawn Winds was quiet for a long time. "Your species is young," she finally said. "But you understand something that species like the hegemony never will. That creation is always more powerful than destruction. That beauty always triumphs over brutality." "Not always," Chen said honestly. "Sometimes brutality wins, but when it does, it's because good people chose not to act. The moment someone stands up and says no more, brutality begins to lose its power." The Melodian's opalescent skin shimmered as she smiled, an expression Chen had learned to recognize during the months of recovery. "This is why the galaxy needs humans, Captain Chen. You don't just fight monsters. You refuse to let monsters define what's possible." 3 weeks later, Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as it patrolled the Outer Rim territories. The ship had been refitted with new weapon systems and defensive upgrades, but more importantly, it now carried a mixed crew. Alongside, the human officers served 2 Melodian cultural specialists and a Vulcan science officer, the first joint species crew in Terran fleet history. "Captain," Lieutenant Torres called from communications, "we're receiving a distress signal, same pattern as the Melodian broadcasts." Chen's blood chilled. "The hegemony?" "Unknown. But Captain..." Torres looked up with confused eyes. "The signal is coming from hegemony space, deep inside their territory." Chen moved to the tactical display. The signal originated from a system the star charts labeled as heavily fortified hegemony military space. No civilian vessels should be anywhere near there. "Analysis, Mr. Webb?" Her first officer studied the sensor readings. "It's definitely not Melodian, but the desperation pattern is identical. Someone's calling for help using the same emergency protocols." Singer of Dawn Winds, now serving as the ship's cultural liaison, approached the command area. "Captain, may I suggest something? The Melodians weren't the only species the hegemony targeted. Our records show they destroyed at least 6 other civilizations over the past century." The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. "You're saying there might be other survivors?" "I'm saying the hegemony has been very thorough in their genocide campaigns. But if someone is broadcasting a Melodian-style distress call from their own territory, they missed someone," Chen finished. "Or someone escaped and made it to hegemony space." She opened a channel to Fleet Command. "This is Captain Chen requesting permission to investigate a possible survivor situation in hegemony territory." Admiral Martinez's voice crackled back within minutes. "Permission denied, Captain. That sector is under heavy hegemony patrol. It would be a suicide mission." Chen looked at her mixed-species crew. The human officers wore expressions of grim determination. The Melodian specialists had gone completely still, a sign of intense emotional response in their species. Even the Vulcan science officer seemed more focused than usual. "Admiral," Chen said carefully, "with respect, we took an oath to protect all sentient life. That oath doesn't recognize political boundaries." "Captain, I understand your position, but..." "Sir," Chen interrupted, "6 months ago, this crew faced impossible odds to save 6 Melodian survivors. Those 6 beings became the foundation for rebuilding an entire civilization. What if there are more out there? What if we're the only ship in position to help?" The calm was silent for a long moment. Then Martinez's voice returned, heavy with resignation and pride. "Captain Chen, you are hereby ordered to maintain your current patrol route and avoid hegemony space at all costs." There was a pause. "However, if your ship were to experience unexpected engine difficulties that caused you to drift off course, well, mechanical failures happen. Just make sure you file a complete report when you return." Chen smiled. "Understood, Admiral. Prometheus out." She turned to her crew. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm afraid we're experiencing some rather serious engine problems. Please adjust course to drift toward that distress signal." The pilot's grin was visible from across the bridge. "Aye, Captain. Severe engine malfunction." "It is." As the Prometheus changed course toward hegemony space, Singer of Dawn Winds approached Chen privately. "Captain, there's something you should know about that sector. According to our historical records, it was once the home system of the Christorians, a species that communicated through light-based art. Beautiful, complex patterns that could convey emotions and stories. What happened to them? The hegemony claimed they were visually disruptive to proper military thinking. They were the first species systematically eliminated over 90 years ago. We thought they were completely extinct." Chen felt that familiar cold determination settling in her chest. Maybe they are. Or maybe someone survived and has been hiding in the one place no one would look, the heart of hegemony space. 4 hours later, the Prometheus crossed into hegemony territory. The star chart showed this region as a fortress of military installations and patrol fleets, but the sensors revealed something unexpected. Vast areas of empty space where the charts indicated major installations. "Captain," Ensign Park reported, I'm reading massive debris fields throughout this system. Recent destruction, maybe weeks old. The hegemony destroying evidence, Webb suggested. Or, said the Vulcan science officer in his precise manner, internal conflict. The hegemony military structure has been destabilized since their defeat at the Melodian debris field. Our intelligence suggests civil war. Chen studied the tactical display. If the hegemony was fighting itself, it would explain the gaps in their patrol coverage, and it might explain how survivors could hide in their own territory. There, Singer of Dawn Wind said suddenly, pointing to a section of the display. That asteroid field, it's too regular to be natural. The Melodian was right. What appeared to be random space debris was actually arranged in subtle patterns that spoke of intelligent design. Mr. Torres, focus our scans on that asteroid field. Look for anything that doesn't belong. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then Torres's voice cut through the bridge noise. Captain, I'm reading artificial structures hidden inside several of the larger asteroids. And life signs. Lots of them. Chen moved to the communications station. Can you establish contact? Trying. Now. The signal we detected is definitely coming from inside that field. The main screen flickered, then cleared to show the interior of what looked like a crystalline cave. Geometric patterns of light pulsed along the walls in complex sequences. Beautiful, mathematical, and obviously intelligent communication. Figure moved into view. Tall and angular like the hegemony, but where the genocidal aliens were dark and metallic, this being seemed to be made of living crystal. Its body refracted light into rainbow patterns that shifted and flowed with obvious meaning. When it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Unknown vessel, you are not hegemony. Your ship's configuration matches the descriptions from the underground broadcasts. You are human? Chen stepped forward. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We received your distress signal. Are you Christorian? The being's light patterns shifted to what could only be joy. I am Crystal Singer of Hidden Truths. We thought we were the last. When the hegemony came, when they said our light speech was illegal, we went dark. We hid. We survived. How many of you are there? In this asteroid field? 3,000. Scattered throughout former hegemony space. Perhaps 10,000 more. We have lived in darkness for 90 years, Captain Chen. We stopped singing with light because they said it was a crime. Chen felt tears prick her eyes. An entire species forced to hide their very nature for nearly a century, afraid to communicate in their natural way because someone had decided their beauty was illegal. Crystal Singer of Hidden Truths, she said, formally. On behalf of the United Earth Federation and our allies, I invite you to step back into the light. The hegemony can no longer hurt you. You're under our protection now. The Christorian's light patterns exploded in brilliant displays of color, a symphony of light that filled the screen with overwhelming beauty. Other figures appeared in the background, their own patterns joining the celebration. We had heard rumors, Crystal Singer said, his patterns gradually settling into calmer hues. Underground broadcasts spoke of humans who fought for those who create beauty. We hoped, but we dared not believe. Believe it, Chen said firmly. And prepare your people for evacuation. We're taking you somewhere safe. All of us? 3,000 beings? Chen looked at her crew. They'd need to contact the fleet, arrange for transport ships, coordinate with dozens of agencies. It would be a massive undertaking. All of you, she confirmed. Every single one. As the rescue operation began, Chen reflected on how much had changed since that first distress call 6 months ago. Humanity had saved 6 Melodian survivors and inadvertently sparked a galaxy-wide movement to protect creators and artists from those who would destroy them. Now they were saving 10,000 Christorians who had hidden in darkness for 90 years. But as evacuation ships began arriving from Terran space, as the asteroid field slowly came alive with complex light patterns, for the first time in decades, Chen realized this was just the beginning. Throughout the galaxy, there were probably thousands of species living in fear, hiding their gifts, afraid to create because someone somewhere had decided their form of beauty was wrong. The hegemony had taught the galaxy that different meant dangerous. Humanity was teaching it something else entirely. Different meant beautiful, and beauty was worth fighting for. As the last Christorian transport ship jumped to warp, carrying refugees toward a new life of freedom, Captain Chen made a mental note to recommend a new mission profile to Starfleet Command. The galaxy needed more than exploration and defense. It needed guardians. Guardians who would seek out the hidden, the oppressed, the artists forced into darkness. By those who feared their light, the Prometheus had found its true calling, and across the galaxy, in hidden colonies and secret refuges, word began to spread. When the humans find you, you're safe. When the humans find you, you can sing again. Think End.